In this video, I want to talk about properly measuring OLED flicker and the things that can go wrong if not done properly that can mask how bad the flicker really is. So the reason I'm thinking about this is because I'm trying to find a phone to replace my iPhone 16. So I've been debating whether I want to get another OLED phone with higher frequency PWM or if I want to go and get an e-ink display. So I've been looking at a lot of OLED flicker test reports, and something I've noticed is that there's a great inconsistency in the results from the same device between different people testing it with different methods. And I think I've figured out partially what is leading to this difference. So I'm going to show this now. So I'm going to use the flicker meter I've been developing, TLM 110 here, because it's better. But everything I'm going to say applies to if you're using an Oppo Lightmaster or really any other photodiode based flicker meter. So I'll set this up to do a measurement, and I'm going to be using this app that I created here to help me do this testing. What this is just going to let me do is control the brightness and some other properties of the test area, which is just what's shown on the screen here. So first I'll show how I believe people are typically taking these measurements. So I have my phone here on full brightness. We have a white image here, and we will lay the phone flat and put the sensor up against the screen. This could be the Oppo or a different flicker meter. This is going to apply for all of them. So we can see we have these OLED refresh dips here, and if we scroll up, these are at 480 Hertz, and it's telling us we have a 17% flicker percentage. And 17% isn't too bad, so based on this measurement, we might say that at max brightness, things look pretty decent. Okay, and I took another measurement here at a lower brightness setting, and we see something like this. We start to see it reaching all the way down to 0, and we get 100% flicker. This is a really common thing you'll see in flicker test reports. So their results will seem to indicate that at full brightness or close to it, the modulation percentage or the flicker percent is fairly low, and then as you reduce the brightness, you get more and more modulation. What I'm going to show is that it's actually pretty important what is on the screen, and having the full screen be white like this or any other color is, in my opinion, not ideal. What we'll do here is we'll go back to max brightness. I'll take another measurement and then I'll save this measurement off. Okay, we save that. Now we're going to go in here and I'm going to reduce this test area height, which is just the number of rows which are white. So we'll reduce this really far down, maybe to, might be hard to see there, but 3 pixels, so we should have 3 rows of the screen active. Position the sensor here, and I'm gonna set up to take another measurement. Okay, here are the results now with the exact same brightness setting. The only difference here is the number of rows on the screen that were active. I'm gonna save this one as well. Okay, so I save that, and then I'm going to go into this compare mode here, which I have in my software, and I'm going to load both of those traces. Okay, so now I have them both loaded in here, and the red trace is with 7 pixels, so basically 7 rows of the screen being active, fully white, and the blue trace is when we did that measurement on the full screen image. And what you'll see here is that there's a huge difference in the flicker index between these two, and also the modulation depth. Just the entire waveform shape is completely different, not due to any difference in how the individual pixels are behaving. It's due to the interaction of different rows overlapping on the photodiode and producing a kind of smeared image of the underlying flicker pattern. Firstly, I want to show you some examples I found online of where OLED screen measurements were exhibiting this behavior and basically giving incorrect results and making the OLEDs look a lot better than they actually are. So we can also do a metrics comparison here. So here are the metrics, mainly looking at the, we can look at the IEEE plot, even though this is very outdated, and I have a lot better metrics in here. Lots of people are used to it. So this is the 7 pixels, and this is the full screen measurement which is what I believe a lot of people are doing, and it's on the border of no observable effect. So a lot of these metrics are going to say that this, even though really the screen is probably doing the same thing on a per pixel basis, it appears much better when you measure with a full widescreen. So the reason for this, I have a demonstration to try to show this. You can see this on my website. So I won't read through this here, but this is basically what OLED, the row scanning will look like with that refresh dip in there. On a lot of phones, there'll be more than one of these black bars, but the principle still applies. And the more of these black bars there are, it's actually going to make this effect more pronounced and make the measurement less accurate. So we can see this is kind of what we see at the peak brightness. We have this steep dip, and then for most of the cycle it's on. And then as we lower it, at first it does some DC dimming, so it just reduces the overall brightness. But then as we get maybe around half brightness, we start to see the pulse width modulation set in, and you get the reduction in the width of the on pulse. So I didn't really demonstrate that in the measurement because I think it's easiest to see this effect on full brightness. But yeah, so that's kind of what the rows are doing, right? So now I'm going to show why the distance you measure from, as well as the number of rows that are active, affects the waveform. So this is a simulation here. Right now, we can see this blue trace. This is what our sensor would be measuring on an OLED screen. And again, there's only one refresh dip shown here, but there can be many, many more. This still applies. So if we reduce the brightness, we see that same pattern. But let's look at max brightness, and let's increase the distance. And what distance is really doing is increasing the number of rows that your sensor is integrating across. Distance is the same essentially as having more rows active. So that's why I was only activating a small number of rows, because then you're getting the results from basically closer to a point source on the screen. We can see as we increase the distance, this waveform just gets really smoothed out, and that's because you're looking at an average over many different rows. And if there's multiple refresh dips, this average is going to be even more smeared out, and you're just going to see kind of it's almost going to look like it's completely flat. You don't see that too often in people's measurement results. Normally it looks something more like that, maybe, where they have dipping partially down but not completely off. So this is also only showing one cycle. When I was showing the waveforms before, we were looking at multiple cycles. So now I'm going to show this directly. We'll go back to the measurement window and show the effect of distance, which is a lot like of seeing multiple rows. So I have it on max brightness, and we'll have the whole screen be white, and I'll take a measurement. So I held this a few centimeters away, and what you can see is you get this kind of wiggling shape. It's still at 480 hertz, but this is really just the effect of that smearing out of the modulation waveform. And I've seen this in a number of measurement results online when I've been looking at OLED results, and it's not really accurate. Some people would argue that this is actually desirable because our eyes are not positioned directly on the screen, but in my opinion, that's not really an accurate statement. Our eyes form an image of the screen. They don't simply absorb a region of the entire screen and integrate that into one number like a photodiode. So since our eye forms an image of the screen, the individual rows are preserved and we don't have spatial averaging going on. So I don't believe it's correct to say that this emulates the effect of being further from the screen or anything like that. The eye is a completely different optical system than a photodiode. So we really should be considering what individual pixels are doing, because that's what gives us the most information. If I take a measurement where the photodiode is 6 inches away, you can see we still see the modulation, but it's really just smeared out and lost. And in my opinion, all we're doing when we're making this measurement further away and with more rows than we need to is losing information. So I think ideally when OLEDs are measured, we need to prevent this from happening, because unlike a photodiode, our eyes don't integrate over a large angle. It's more accurate if you isolate as few rows as possible. How can you avoid this? Well, if you're able to choose what's on the screen, you can use an app like this. I just made this one quickly, but or you can just find an image online of a single white row, and this will help a lot in getting a more accurate result. So no matter what brightness you're testing this at, I demoed this at full brightness, but the same principle applies at lower brightness settings. You're going to lose information if you have a lot of angle and a lot of rows being integrated onto the photodiode. So you always want to minimize the space on the screen that's active. If you can't do this, one thing you can do is physically block most of the screen. You can do that with some opaque tape, like electrical tape. Just put that over the screen with a white image displayed. It's a lot less convenient than just being able to adjust this. So as far as the OLED test results that exist online go, I really wouldn't, I would take them with a grain of salt. I wouldn't buy an OLED phone because someone told you that they measured that it had only 10% modulation. So I do want to mention as well that if you're interested in getting one of these flicker meters for yourself, which comes with the software I've been using, leave a comment below. I'm giving away demo units for people to try this out and give feedback.